Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the fact that I'm able to follow my colleague from South Carolina who has I think, described and encapsulated in pretty simple terms what this proposal is before us, this tax proposal is good for the country. It's good for American families. It's good for Alaskan families and South Carolina families. And I'm pleased to be able to join my colleagues this afternoon in support of the reconciliation legislation that we have pending before us. I happen to believe that the tax reform title will help our families keep more of their hard-earned dollars. I think it will make American businesses more competitive. I'm also proud to be the author of the energy title contained within this measure that works to strengthen our long-term energy security. I think it's important that we kind of look at the moment here, recognize the magnitude of the moment. Once in a generation, do we have an opportunity to really take a hard look at our economy, the role that Congress can play in encouraging true growth, and then take the action that we need to get the economy back on track. Our historic tax reform effort will grow Alaska and the nation's economy. You know, when you look at it from the broader view, from a 1,000-foot view, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it's pro-economy, it's pro-growth, it's a pro-jobs proposal that reduces taxes, puts dollars in the pockets of hard-working Americans at every income level. I think when you think about all that does in terms of boosting the economy to create jobs that feed our families, that help us put our kids through college, the kind of jobs that allow you to save for the unexpected events, to be able to retire with peace of mind, and the flexibility to be the great innovators that we are in this country. What we see in this proposal are meaningful developments in the tax code to provide substantive relief to Americans across the economic spectrum. In Alaska, you take a family of 4 with 2 kids earning $50,000 that uses the standard deduction. They're going to see a tax decrease of $1,400. If the same family earns about $75,000, that tax liability would be reduced by $2,000. The child tax credit, the benefit that we see from doubling or near doubling that tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000, the refundability, expanding the eligibility up to children under 18. This is a significant form of help to the 22 million Americans who use the child tax credit. And in terms of simplifying the tax code, how often do we hear our constituents say, just make it simpler for us? Making it simpler, fair tax treatment for individuals in every income bracket. Again, this is a proposal that delivers. Most Americans take advantage of the standard deduction, and this act doubles the standard deduction, resulting in a $12,000 deduction for single filers, $24,000 for married taxpayers filing jointly. And I focus a lot on the families. In Alaska, we don't happen to have a lot of large corporations, but when you look to the benefits contained within this proposal and the impact that they will have on our larger businesses, our corporations, it is significant. Recognizing that the steps that we're taking to lower the corporate rate to allow us to be more competitive, not only in this country but globally, all we need to do is really look to what we're seeing already with the uptick in businesses and how we can be doing more to help further incent that. I think we recognize that lower corporate tax rates will allow our businesses to compete against our foreign competitors, make the investments in American operations that will bring the jobs, the economic growth that have eluded us for so many years. In Alaska, it's over 99%. It's actually 99.6% of our businesses are small businesses. They're taxed at the individual rate. So the discussion that we have had with regards to allowing owners of pass-through small businesses to be able to deduct an additional % of their business income from their taxes. This is a significant benefit for our entrepreneurs, and one that I certainly endorse. Some of the other provisions that help our businesses, the 100% immediate full business expensing for the next 5 years, the expansion of the Section 179 small business expensing. These incentivize the kind of foundational investments that implement long-term plans that help to expand operations, encourage businesses to take that risk that is needed when we're talking about creating lasting economic growth. And the bill also helps our smaller businesses protect what they've built. And when someone passes on, the ability to be able to pass to that next generation what we have done with the doubling of the exemption for the estate tax is important. There's been a lot of discussion about the benefits that is seen with this particular provision on our farmers. In Alaska, don't have a big agriculture section of our state, but we view our fishermen really as the farmers or the ranchers of the sea, truly small businessmen. And when you think about the investment that a fishing family makes in a vessel, in the gear, in the permits, in the quota, you can have a significant investment totaling millions of dollars, $5, $7, $8 million. It's about $1 million when you think about the quota and the permits there. So recognizing how we are able to provide for just a little bit of relief to those smaller families. I don't think that they would consider themselves millionaires in the sense of having that disposable income, but being able to pass that hard work that you have built as a small family operator in a fishing business is important, and it's significant. Bottom line, Mr. President, this is a proposal that does work. It does work for Alaska families. It does work for our families. It gets dollars into the pockets and relief to our families. And it will help restore competition in the global marketplace, certainly to job creators, and also confidence that now is the time to invest in America. So I thank the members of the Finance Committee, the good work done by Chairman Hatch, for the work that they have done on tax reform. I'd also like to thank the members of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee who worked with me to report the second title of this legislation and to report it on a bipartisan basis. We've got a very straightforward text. It's just 6 pages in total, which is pretty impressive in this day and age, but this small package offers a tremendous opportunity for Alaska, for the Gulf Coast, and really for all of our nation. Within this title, we authorize responsible energy development in the 1002 area. This covers 1.57 million acres of land in the non-wilderness portion of ANWR in the northeastern corner of the state. We require the program to be managed in a manner similar to the environmentally protective framework that is used for other federal lands on Alaska's North Slope. It also provides for 2 lease sales to be conducted over the next 10 years. In terms of how the revenues are shared, we split the revenues from development evenly between the federal government and the state of Alaska. We've limited surface development to just 2,000 federal acres within the 1002 area. This is just 1/10,000th of all of ANWR. Again, we're talking about a very limited surface development to just 2,000 federal acres within the 1002 area. Many have raised concerns about, well, what about the environmental process? Do you sidestep that? Not at all. We have not preempted the environmental review process. We have not limited the consultation process with Alaska Natives in any way. All relevant laws, regulations, and executive orders will apply under our language. And I think it's important to recognize this is not something that just kind of appeared. Our title is the result of regular order process here in the Senate. It will include a regular order environmental process with laws like NEPA, all fully applied after we pass it. So you have a regular order process before as well as after. We also strengthened our bipartisan title in the committee during our regular order markup by adding a bipartisan amendment that was sponsored by Senators Cassidy, Strange, and King. And the provision will increase revenue sharing in the Gulf Coast to be used for priorities like coastal restoration and hurricane protection. I think we've all seen, given the hurricanes that they have endured in the Gulf region this year, there's certainly need for this critical investment. The 1002 area in the northeast corner of Alaska is a long ways from the Gulf Coast, but it also will bring substantial benefits to every part of our nation. With this provision, we will generate substantial revenues for long-term deficit reduction, well over $100 billion over the life of the fields. And I think that's important to keep it into context. We're talking not just about short-term within this 10-year window, but what will come our way over the life of the fields in terms of revenues to the country. We're going to create jobs, thousands of them, and not just in Alaska, but really all over the country. We will reduce our foreign oil dependence, and this is important because we are projected to remain a net importer long into the future. And in states like California, our foreign dependence in California has actually deepened as we have seen Alaska's oil production decline. So this means for them jobs and revenues as well. And of course, you cannot talk about energy security without recognizing the benefits to our country's national security and what this yields. We're also taking a major step to make energy more affordable. Fact of the matter is the world is using more oil and not less. Our prices are rising. OPEC would like to keep it that way, regardless of the consequences for America. Meanwhile, the International Energy Agency, among others, is warning of a looming shortfall in global supply. We've seen the price spikes and the disorder that result when we fail to respond and to be prepared. I think we recognize that these are all significant benefits: jobs, revenues, national security, affordability, but we should be equally confident that this will not come at the expense of our environment, simply because we have the technologies, the new developments that really have worked to dramatically reduce the footprint of development, smaller than ever. The size of development pads on Alaska's North Slope has decreased by roughly 80% since we began operations in the 70s. New technologies have expanded the subsurface reach of the new rigs by more than 4,000%. And folks have seen the various charts that we've had here on the floor that show just how far we're able to reach below the surface from one single well. If you were to drop a drill down from below the Capitol here, extended reach technology can take you all the way out to National Harbor, just to kind of put things in context here. So the technologies allow us to have a much, much smaller footprint. Many exploration wells are now being built using ice roads and ice pads that melt when the spring thaw comes, leaving no impact to the tundra. So making sure that we are being environmentally conscious at every turn is what we do, is a priority for us in Alaska. And we hear the claims, the baseless claims of destruction and devastation. But the reality is that is not our experience in Alaska. That is not how we do business. We need less land to access more resources than ever before. That's the reality in Alaska today. And Alaskans understand this. And that's why there are so many of us that so strongly support this development. Our entire congressional delegation, our independent governor, our Democratic lieutenant governor, Alaska Natives who live on the North Slope, including in Kaktovik, which is actually in the 1002 area. Some people say that this is an area that is untouched, unspoiled. Well, you need to talk to the people who live in Kaktovik, who fly in on the airstrip there, whose children attend the school, who work in the clinic. These are people who also support the development. The voice of the Arctic Inupiat, the North Slope Borough, dozens of our state legislators, hundreds and hundreds of Alaskans have called or written in support of this effort, which is no surprise because about 70% of Alaskans support responsible energy development in the non-wilderness 1002 area. And they're joined by many national stakeholders. We've got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the National Association of Manufacturers, Americans for Prosperity, Securing America's Energy Future, North America's Building Trades, the Laborers International Union of North America, the International Union of Operating Engineers, just to name a few. Now, there are some who worry about the potential impacts of development in the 1002 area, and I would be the first to agree that environmental and local wildlife will always be a concern, always be a priority. And that's why we did not waive NEPA or any other environmental laws. And that's why the consultation requirements with our Alaska Native peoples will apply. And that's why surface development will cover up to, but no more than, 2,000 federal acres. Fact of the matter is, Mr. President, we will not sacrifice wildlife or the environment for the sake of development. But we also recognize that that is not the choice that we face here. This is not an either-or proposition. This has not been the experience in Prudhoe Bay, where we have seen the central Arctic caribou herd grow more than 7-fold since development began. And it comes because we are taking the care as we seek to develop. If we're allowed to move forward with development, we will do it right. We will take care of our lands, we will take care of our wildlife, and we will take care of our people. And I wouldn't support development if I was not convinced that it cannot be done safely and responsibly. I was born in Alaska. I think I'm the first senator serving who was ever born in Alaska, and actually in the territory of Alaska. It will always be my home. My husband and I have raised our boys there, and we hope that they lead a long and a healthy life in this amazing and beautiful place. And we know that there's no one that cares more about our place, these spaces, than those who call it home. We love this place, and we will not risk its future for the sake of development. But again, we know that's not the case here. We know that that is not the trade-off here. We know that this is not an either-or proposition. The 1002 area was created by a congressional compromise decades ago, and we always knew that its future would require another compromise, and today we've got it before us. We're not asking to develop all of the 1002 area. We are asking instead 2,000 federal acres, about 1/10,000th of all of ANWR. And we've waited nearly 40 years for the right technologies to come along so that the footprint of development is small enough to ensure that the environment is protected going forward. So, Mr. President, I encourage members to recognize the tremendous opportunity that we have before us. Clear from my words today and that leading up to it that I support this legislation, and I would encourage every member to follow in suit. And with that, Mr. President, I thank you and I yield the floor.